Welcome to the Intentional Leader Podcast presented by Reenergize Professional Coaching. We appreciate you listening in and learning with us. The stories and leadership tips you hear will help you become a great leader. Listen intentionally. Now, to our host, Sean Olson.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Intentional Leader Podcast. This is the podcast where you hear the real stories of people just like you who become extraordinary leaders. You'll learn valuable tips from their lives, tips that you can apply to become the best leader that you were created to be. When leaders are intentional, lives are changed. I'm your host, Sean Olson. I am an entrepreneur. I am an author. I am a podcast host here at the Intentional Leader Podcast. We're glad to have you here today. Before we get rolling with our guest today, I want to encourage you listeners, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave some comments, make all the algorithms happy so the Intentional Leader Podcast can continue to grow throughout the world. Today, we are incredibly blessed to have with us an entrepreneur, a business owner from Africa. He's actually coming to us today from Mozambique. His name is Mhamud Charania. Mhamud, it is great to have you on the Intentional Leader Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Sean. It's glad to be on your show, on your podcast.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you and to hear about business in Africa and how leadership plays out across the world. And so, Mhamud, you're familiar with our show that we begin every episode with just asking you to walk us through your professional career and leadership lessons learned along the way. So to fill us in on some of your entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you, Sean. So I was born in Africa, educated in North America, and at the early age of 28, decided to go back to Africa. Went through various ventures, first initially in trading in Mozambique, but then decided to go into manufacturing. And the first manufacturing unit that we did open in Mozambique was a maize mill. At that time, Mozambique had just come out of the long civil war. They had signed a peace accord, and there was the first democracy installed in the country in 1994. So the first president-elect was 94, and I arrived in Mozambique in 95, started the first maize mill in 98, and from a small maize mill of 100 tons per day, grew over in 28 years today to close to 3,000 tons of milling per day, and
Wow.
added also some other products which are derivatives of wheat and maize. So apart from maize, we also mill wheat. Wheat which is imported from various parts of the globe, from the US, from Canada, from Australia, from Russia, from Argentina, and we blend all those wheats together, produce the main staple food in Mozambique is bread.
Mm-hmm.
So we produce that flour for about 55% of the population of the country.
Wow.
And after that, after those initial investments into milling, we decided to go further down. So we started producing spaghetti, pasta.
Mm-hmm.
Although Mozambique was not familiar with eating pasta, it was not their staple diet. We taught the Mozambican population how to eat pasta. We had cooking schools throughout the country. We talked to the people because the main staple was maize flour and rice. So
Wow.
we added the pasta into their diet. And today we produce close to 7,000 tons of pasta. We grew the market on an average by 25% annually.
Wow, that is incredible. So that's some incredible growth in there. So a couple questions. First off, you opened up the maize mill and you talked about the wheat and you import it from a number of countries. The maize, is Mozambique quite an agricultural area where you grow the maize locally?
Okay, so Mozambique does grow maize locally. Mozambique grows about 2 million tons a year, but that is only during the season from May to August. The rest of the year or the rest of the time, the maize is imported from the neighboring country, South Africa, which is another huge producer of maize. And although the maize is grown by small family sector, not by big commercial agriculture companies, so that has not still been forthcoming in Mozambique. But I think over time we see more and more big in commercial farming coming into the country, which we feel that in few years it will be sufficient to supplement the deficit of the maize during the off season.
Nice, nice. So with the growth of your organization going, 3,000 tons per day now over the last 30 years you've grown, what has the head count of Merrick been in that time frame?
Okay, when we started, we were 12 people. Today, with direct labor, it's 1,000 people on direct labor, and indirect, I mean all the other services like cleaning, loading. We employ another 1,200 people
My
indirectly.
goodness.
So a total of 2,200 people.
So obviously with that kind of growth, even though it's over 30 years, that's substantial growth. What have been some of your leadership challenges and how have you overcome those?
Okay, as you can imagine, when I started, I was 30 years old, and majority of the people working for me were older than me.
Mm,
So the first challenge was to earn their confidence, right? To have a trust, because sometimes age also plays a role in business. So
absolutely.
that was the first challenge I had. The other challenge, I did not speak a word of Portuguese, and Mozambique is a Portuguese-speaking country. The national
Mm,
language is Portuguese. So I had to learn very quickly Portuguese to be able to communicate with the government, with the official offices, to make sure that the ideas that I was putting forward would be accepted by them. And the other challenge was that as this country had come out of a long civil war, the infrastructure was not there. So you had to manage all those challenges. How to get your goods to the end consumer was a big challenge. So this now is changing as the country is growing.
wow, that's fantastic. So that initial aspect of developing confidence and trust with the other people who are older than you, what was one or two key things you intentionally did to develop that confidence and trust?
Okay, I always listen to my with my collaborators. I take their opinion into consideration. So we have an open discussion, and sometimes we try their ideas, even if I feel that that idea would not work. But we try the idea and see, and then, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. So we we see how it comes out, and then when they learn the way that I work, because I was educated in North America, different education system than the people who are educated in Mozambique. With time, they understood the way that I work, and I gained the confidence of my worker, of my management team.
That's fantastic. So, I think one of the great aspects of this, I mean, obviously, you guys have grown substantially. That's incredible. But this concept that you introduced Mozambique to spaghetti, why did you think of bringing spaghetti in there, first of all? And then how did you actually introduce it? Did you have to teach them to cook it? How did that all play out?
Okay, because when we produce wheat flour to make bread, there is basically we are selling B2B. We are not selling B2C. So the end user who eats the bread, he doesn't know where the flour comes from.
Hmm.
So the flour becomes a commodity price, a commodity product. So there is a lot of price negotiation. Although service level is still there, but there is a lot of price negotiation. So we thought that how can we add value to the flour that we produce to make it a consumer product with a branding that when you eat it, you know that it's coming from the Merek, and our brand is called Bella. And specifically in the beginning, what we did, Bella, Italian, it's Bella, but
Hmm.
we wrote it Bela. We put one L. And that was a marketing scheme that we did because many people called and said, you have made a mistake on your packaging. You have forgotten an L.
Ah,
That was for people to notice the packaging was not correctly spelled and for them to call us so they would be aware of the brand. So that was a gimmick that we did. We purposely made a mistake,
interesting.
didn't put two L, put one L. You still pronounce it Bella with two L,
Yeah,
one L, but that took off very. It became viral. People started calling and saying, not because of spaghetti, calling
yeah.
us because they said that you made an error in your packaging.
That is crazy. So that's like a an innovative way to go about that, and it was a risk because in some senses that could have flopped, right?
Yes,
People would have just been like, "Hey, what's with this?" But that is
yes.
a great story.
So we added the spaghetti to our line just to have a better margin, to have a branded value, and create not just a commodity company, but a company which sells an FMCG company, which sells a branded product where it can add value.
Fantastic. I love that. So, Merrick, today you're up to 3,000 tons per day. What do you see in the coming years? What are maybe some other innovations in helping the company keep growing?
So we are constantly investing in capacity because Mozambique's population at the moment is 33 million people and it's growing at close to 3% per annum. So there is 1 million people more every single year. And the population today, it's about 35% urban, 65% rural. But with
Mm,
time changing and more employment being created in the country, a lot of the rural population is moving into the cities. And when they move into the cities, they stop living off the land, they start buying our products.
mm,
So our growth, apart from the 3% of the population growth, the urbanization of the population gives us another 5%. So we have a growth of about 8% per annum. And in order to keep up with this growth, we have to do more investment. And we are also looking into producing other products which can add value, branded products. So 3 years ago, we started manufacturing bread actually in an
mhm.
industrial bakery. We produce per day 300,000 pieces of, they call it Portuguese pão, okay, bread per day, and we distribute it to the capital city. We are just in the capital city in the bread industry, and we supply 300,000 loaves of bread every single morning in the capital. To give
Wow.
you an idea, the capital's population is about 2 million. So we produce bread for 15% of the population and deliver it to their home every day.
My goodness, that is tremendous. And so I love you talking about the urbanization of Mozambique and the capital city being about 2 million people, because I'm going to make an assumption that a lot of our listeners don't really understand the geography and the makeup of much of Africa, including Mozambique. And so that capital city is at 2 million. You said there's a lot of urbanization, so people are coming into that area. What
Yes.
are some of the pressures that you guys are feeling with that growth? That's some pretty substantial growth.
Yes. So the pressure, first of all, the infrastructure has to expand because the city is not built for such a growth. So the massive infrastructure projects are taking place. A lot of housing is being built. And then we have massive traffic jams. So there are
Mm,
days that our factory from our offices is about 15 kilometers. So I think it's about what 10 miles. Uh,
yeah.
it could take you up to 1 hour to do this trajectory because of the traffic jams. So these are all the challenges when you especially have to distribute products, and when it takes you to do 10 miles about 1 hour on a good day, on a bad day, it could take you an hour and a half. So you can see all the logistics and all the pressures that we have to get the product out there. So many times our logistic department, although our manufacturing department works 24 hours of the day, our logistics sometimes starts at 5 in the morning and finishes at 8 or 9 at night to get all the products out to the businesses or to the consumer.
Wow, that's crazy. So take me inside for a minute about you and your role. So, I think about like when it was 12 people when you joined into it, now it's 2,200 people. What types of roles have you played along the way? But even more specifically, what's your role today with that size of an organization?
Okay, thanks, Sean. So when I started, I was hands-on doing the commercial side of it, the human resources side of it, the supply chain. So basically, it was very small. It was a one-man show, and I
Hmm.
also had to understand milling because I'm not a milling by profession. So although we had
Right.
millers, but we had to understand the business. And as we grew, I became the CEO of the company. Okay, and we had a management team with me, and about 7 years ago, I we appointed a new CEO, and I became the chairman of the board. So now
Mm.
we have a board with 8 people. There's 5 executive and 3 non-executives from different industries, and then we have a management team of 12 people who manages all the manufacturing processes and the supply chain and commercial aspects, the HR aspects.
That's incredible. How is it now to be chair of the board? You're not the CEO anymore. So you're kind of sitting back watching everything happen. How's that been for you? And how have you learned to lead and influence when you're not the CEO?
Okay. You have to learn first of all to let go and trust the management. So in the beginning it was a bit difficult when you are hands-on for 20 years and suddenly you have to let go what you have created to someone else and trust in that person. So there was some challenges in the beginning, but then you understand and you live off reports that they send you daily. So we get a daily report of what's happening. We have an online dashboard that we check also what's happening in the business. And you learn how to motivate other people to also grow one day and take your position, because one day I'll retire as a board member,
Hmm.
and still the business will be running.
Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. What an incredible story, and great for our listeners to hear what's happening in Africa. But what I really like about this is you have different challenges there. For instance, coming out of your war and stuff, but it's still business and it's still leadership. People are people. They need clarity in roles. They need leadership. They need to know we have someplace we're going, providing hope. You've been providing the innovation. And what I love about this is your story is an incredible success story, whether it be in Mozambique, whether it be in the US, no matter where it be. And leadership takes place all across the board with that. And so, great story. Now, I also know from talking to you before that you are a big part of Crown Paints, which is the largest paint supplier in the country of Kenya in Africa. Talk to us for a little bit about Crown and how you got involved with that.
Thanks, Sean. So my parents were born in Kenya, and I visited Kenya when I was young, and knew a few people there. And in '98, one of my friends told me there was a paint factory for sale in Kenya. Although I didn't know anything about chemicals, but I looked at it at the business aspect, and I said, oh, maybe there's an opportunity to get into paints and learn about it. So I decided, it was practically at the same time that I started the manufacturing in Mozambique, that there would be a great opportunity to buy a paint factory. It was very small at that time. So I decided to buy that paint factory in 1998. And because it was a new business, for 5 years, between 98 and 2003, I lived 2 days in Nairobi, in Kenya, and 2 weeks in Nairobi, Kenya, and 2 weeks in Maputo, Mozambique. So I used to
Wow.
travel between the two countries. My wife was not too happy about it, but I had to sacrifice for at least
Yeah.
5 years to understand the business and get it off the ground. So that business, when we bought it in '98, you sell paint in liters. So at that time, it was doing about 400,000 liters a month. Today,
Hmm.
it's doing about 5.5 million liters a month. So
Wow.
it has grown about 12 folds in the same amount of time. And we have a very catchy slogan: if you like Crown, which is our brand, you crown it.
Mm. Hmm.
So basically, if you like the brand, crown your house with our paint.
I love that.
So
I
it's
love that.
been a good success, and since then we have moved into other countries also. Apart from Kenya, we moved into Tanzania, we moved into Uganda and Rwanda, and it's still a growing concern. And we opened few other manufacturing sites within Kenya. So apart from Nairobi, we opened in Kisumu, in Mombasa, and at the moment, I'm also the chairman of the board there. So, but I'm non-executive, so less involved than in Merrick. But we have our monthly review meetings that we check the
Hmm.
results and see how the company is performing and what new innovations can be done, because paints has changed a lot over the last 30 years.
Yeah. So when I listen to the stories, the two of them with Merrick and with Crown, and you going 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, you obviously have been an exceptional leader. I mean, this doesn't happen naturally, right? It doesn't just happen because somebody's there. I know that Africa has grown, but it doesn't mean the business has had to grow. So you've been a high level leader. What would you tell our listeners are like the two biggest leadership lessons or tips to really be effective at a high level to allow those companies to grow? Because a lot of times the leadership is like the ceiling, right? They hold companies back. What are one or two things you've really done intentionally to lead at a high level to allow those companies to grow as they have?
First of all, you need to have a vision, what you want to be. It has to be very, very clear. And then you need to have the buy-in of your management on your vision. Okay. Once you have that, the second most important is discipline and
Mm,
focus. If you don't have discipline, you keep on trying every day until you succeed. If you give up and don't have the discipline, you will never achieve your vision. Discipline is very, very important, and focus is focusing on your vision. So between once you have created your vision, because many people don't believe you in the beginning. Like if
yeah,
you said 30 years ago that I'm producing 400,000 liters, I'm going to be 5 million or 6 million liters in 30 years, they wouldn't have believed. Even last week, we set our target that we need to be doubling our capacities and everything in 5 years. So from 6 million liters to 12 million liters in 5 years. Many people did not buy the vision, so you have to make sure that the management buys into your vision, and then is discipline.
absolutely. Vision definitely sets the tone for businesses. And I know that the vision oftentimes is about growth, it's about impact. There's a lot of different elements that come into a vision. With the vision you had, whether it be with Merrick or with Crown, actually, let's just focus on Crown for a minute. You know, when you came in there, when you bought the organization, you were producing paint. It was a viable company. That's why you bought it. But you cast this vision. I love that you just shared the vision of doubling again. But here's a question. So we're over a 30-year span from where you bought it to where we are today. How many times did you have to refresh the vision, set new goals, set new standards? What was the frequency with that?
We would review the vision every year when we did the budget for the next following year. we normally the vision is the same, but there's some tweaks that you do. Okay, so it's not that the completely that okay we are let's say a paint manufacturing business, and then tomorrow we decide to scrap the paint and become a cement factory, right?
Hmm.
So the vision is still the same, but there are some tweaks to the vision which happens every year because the environment changes. Uh, Today, for example, our paints are more environmental friendly. We
Hmm.
make a lot of paint, not of solvents, but of water. So these things change, but the vision of being a paint factory and serving the people and making the people choose your paint and the reason for them to choose your paint, that continues.
Good. I like that, how it's been morphing over time. So let's talk for a minute, because I'm sure our listeners are interested in the international aspect with Africa, and because you have been to North America for some education and such. What, if any, difference is there in building a company like in North America versus building a company in Africa?
I think that the one of the major challenges that we have in the beginning is the technical aspect. In for example, Mozambique, when we were looking for millers, for a spaghetti specialist, lab technician, in North America, it's easy to find because there are a lot of universities, a lot of technical
Mm.
universities, a lot of talent coming out every year. In Mozambique, the universities have just started, and the technical knowledge is missing. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we are having in Mozambique. So sometimes, although we are the pioneers in pasta, but sometimes in a market where people are already used to eating pasta or being part of their staple food, it's easier to grow because it's already there. But when you start from new and you teach and you have to get the technical talent, everything, it becomes difficult.
Absolutely. So, did you have to recruit that technical talent from areas outside of Africa? How did you overcome that barrier?
Yes, initially we had to recruit. We recruited some peoples from Italy. We
Hmm.
recruited some people from Portugal. We recruited people from South Africa, from India, from Egypt, and built. And then the knowledge was passed on to the local Mozambican, and some potential workers in our factory. We also sent them overseas to Europe to learn about the techniques, spend 6 months outside, and to learn how to produce those products.
Nice. You kind of sent them out for that internship type of a deal. That's awesome.
Correct. Yes.
So, I know a lot of companies in the US and a lot of our listeners do business in their home countries, whether it be in the US, North America, or even other places like Africa. You have been able to navigate really well being an international business, even inside of Africa. You're in multiple countries now, and you just talked about recruitment you've done in other countries. Most entrepreneurs, when they think about international business and going to other countries, it scares them to death. And they think, I can't do that. How have you navigated being really a global company and working with countries all around the world?
I think what happens is you have to build a team of people that you trust.
Hmm.
And those people, like say, if I wanted to expand, let's say in another country in Ethiopia, I would send my team that I trust to go and spend there 3 6 months to understand the country and find other people with the same thoughts, with the same work ethics, and then employ them and make part of the team and then build a business. The
Mm.
human aspect of the business is very important. If you
Yeah,
don't have the right team with you, you could have the best machines and the best processes, but it is still the human management team is very important.
absolutely. It's everything. No, that's great insights. I love your idea of going for 3 to 6 months and finding those individuals and developing those individuals before you even start the business.
Correct.
And that whole realm of, I guess, research and development, right? Finding the right people, finding the right location, then going after it. But it's calculated. But I agree, the human element's everything. The human element's what sets good organizations from poor organizations apart. So let me ask you one last question around that human element. What have you, Mhamud, and your two companies, American Crown, intentionally done to invest in your people to develop them?
Okay. First thing we do before we employ somebody, we looked at the best talent possible that we can get. So the remuneration is not the criteria of hiring somebody. First, we have to find the right talent. And once we have employed the right talent, we encourage them the continuous learning. So if they wanted to take a course online, or if they wanted to go for 2 weeks to a university or to another organization, we encourage that, because ideas are changing. The world is changing very quickly. You could be on top of your business today, but in a year, new ideas have come up. And if you don't follow, or if you're not aware of it, you go behind. So we encourage, once we have hired the best talent, to continuously educate themselves and find new ideas and meet people in the same industry. So we send them different fairs all around the world every year.
Wow. I love your intentionality behind that, the investment in them and making sure it succeeds. Well, Mhamud, you have been a great leader and impacted Africa in so many different ways. Thank you for sharing some of that story today. I think we're all going to learn some incredible things of how we can build out, and that's been a blessing. So we finish every episode with the same question. It's just a quick tip. So I'll ask it directly. Mhamud, what is something our listeners can intentionally do today to lead more effectively?
I would advise that think with a great focus, and do not complicate things. Think simple. Sometimes we try to do too many things at once, and then we don't succeed in any one of them. So think simple, think one idea, focus on it, and achieve your goal.
Great tip. Focus and discipline. I love that. Well, listeners, you can find some links to those companies down in the show notes today. We'll have a link to Mhamud's LinkedIn if you want to connect with him. Mhamud, thank you so much for being here with us on the Intentional Leader podcast. Powerful story and lessons of leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Intentional Leader Podcast presented by Reenergize Professional Coaching. Be sure to see the show notes for links to Reenergize Professional Coaching and links to contact our guests. Now, hit that subscribe button so that you are alerted with every new episode of the Intentional Leader Podcast.